successful when you choose sort of their business,
You
right?
know, right?
Yeah, but
You
it's a
know.
lesser extent, and I
It
did
is.
choose something slightly different.
It is. And I did choose something a little slightly different after a point, too, for that very reason. I mean, I was thrilled that my mother had a television series that she could say, look, you seem to like this business, and you picked your high school because it had the best drama department, and I'm switching my show, and how about you and Desi playing the kids? I think you could do a good job. And I went, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go to Northwestern. I want to study. I want to be good at what I don't want somebody to say you got this part just because it's your mother. And she made a deal with me. She said if after the first season the word is, and we'll know, they're not that good, we'll just write you out. But maybe you'll be good. Maybe you'll learn. And I said, okay, if you promise that that's true. And that's exactly how it went. First season, they were like, they're okay. Second season, they're getting better. And then I learned amazing things on that show. All those musical numbers that were in the show. We're talking about the Here's Lucie show.
The third show.
Thank you, the third. Thank you. So it was a great education. And from that, I went off. Vivian Vance is actually the one who said to me, what do you do on your hiatus from this show? And I start listing all the fabulous vacation points in the world. I go to Mexico, I go to Hawaii. She goes, no. You were a theater person. You picked your high school because best theater. You got to get back to the stage. You don't want to be typecast as some television hussy for the rest of your life. And coming from her, it really hit home. Because this woman could have done, Medea had she not been Ethel Mertz all her life. She was a fabulous dramatic actress, and she left to go do that, and she didn't really, by the time she went back, it was kind of hard to get those parts. So I listened to her, and I started doing summer stock, which led to my first national tour and Seesaw and various things like that. And I thank her to this day for giving me something that my mother wasn't involved in, my dad wasn't, my brother wasn't. I had the stage,
So I learned from reading about you that your husband of 137 years just celebrated your 37th anniversary.
Well, yes, we've been together 37 years, and he's sitting right there in the front row, Lawrence Leffenberg. Oh, go on, Larry. Stand up and let them see that you're a full person. Woo-hoo!
Five kids altogether?
5 kids. We had 3. I'll talk more about them Wednesday and Thursday. But yes, Larry has 2 beautiful stepsons, and we had 3 on our own. So, and they're all grown up now. They still live at home.
Oh, you must be so proud.
They're laughing because they know. They come back, don't they?
In reading, and I read something that your husband said, so I'm now really intrigued, because the idea that when your mom said, hey, I see that you like this, I have this show, we need kids in the show, why not have my kids in the show? And you said no to your mother. According to Larry, that's a pattern. When you get offered a part, you try to talk the person who offered you the part out of giving it to you, which I find an intriguing professional strategy.
It's been a problem of mine for a long time. I guess I was always a frustrated director, producer, which I'm doing more of that now. But for years, I would go in and I would read a part. Just recently, there was a play on Broadway called The People in the Pictures, and it was a story about an internment camp, really, Holocaust, and they offered me this part, and I went in and I read it, and I loved it. I mean, it was really great, and I finished reading. I said, I'm really wrong for this. You should get Donna Murphy. And they did. I mean, it was good because she was better for it. Yeah, I talked myself out of a lot of stuff.
You preempted it that time. I'm not going to wait for you to
I should have been a casting director.
Because I was reading about, the revival of Pippin's a huge success on Broadway. It wins Tonys. Yeah. They literally, they don't ask you to audition. They go to you. The producer goes to you for the touring company. And you're like, I don't think so.
No, I said, look, I saw that show and I loved it so much. I saw, Andrea Martin do it, and then I knew that Tova Feldshuh had done it, and a couple of other people, and I said, because, anybody see that new version, that sort of Cirque du Soleil version of Pippin? Oh my God. The woman that plays the grandmother hangs from a trapeze and sings and does this whole dance trapeze with this big hunky guy, not hooked onto anything and 30 feet above the ground. It's unbelievable. And they said, we'd love to have you do this. And I went, oh my God. But it was so tempting. I said, can I come back and see it just one more time? I want to just imagine myself doing it. And then you say I didn't have to audition. They didn't tell me it was an audition.
Oh, okay.
But I went, I'm glad I didn't know. Because I went down and they put me on the trapeze, and first they asked me to can you touch your toes? You know, oh, is that all you have to do?
I'd have been out right then.
Yeah, right. They want to know, are you flexible? And then sit on the trapeze and whole thing. We're going to lift you up a little bit. Are you terrified? Are you scared yet? No, I'm good. You know, and so they said, I think you'd be fine. And then they said, why don't you go sit down there and run the song with the musical director to make sure the key is right. Right. So I go down there and I sing the song, you know, No Time at All, which I love that song. And I noticed now when I think back on it, it was supposed to be just me and the musical director and the guy, the gymnast on stage. And there was a guy sitting over there reading, and there was a guy over there reading, and there was somebody over there. So basically they were checking me out to see if I could do it all, but I must have passed. So they offered me the part. And the hardest, I mean, I would have still been doing that show, except I can't leave this guy at home forever. It's our third act. We live in Palm Springs now, and life is really good, and I just don't want to be away from him that long. And that's the truth.
You spent summers in Palm Springs with your folks growing up, right?
Thank God, not the summers, but winters.
I mean,
yes,
the
hiatuses.
Yeah.
The hiatuses, yes. For most people, summers are the hiatus. But yes, we went down there on weekends. My father built the first house there in Thunderbird, not the first house in Palm Springs, but the first house at Thunderbird Country Club, and we had great memories of living there. And it's a beautiful place to live, very doable, I call it. You know.
So for the long trailer. Where were your parents in their lives here? They were in the middle of I Love Lucy. They're the most popular duo, most popular two people on television. And how many weeks? Now many shows do 10 episodes a year. Some do 13. A few still do 22. But
I think they did 22 or 30 or something like that. Who knows? You're more experts out there than me.
I think that
I know
number
they did 180 all told, and it was 8 seasons, including the Lucy Desi comedy hours.
So you would imagine that you'd want to
take a break.
A break.
Yeah, you'd think, especially when you have 2 kids at home.
Right.
No, let's do a movie instead and never come home. They found this wonderful script, and Vincent Minnelli was available to direct it. And it's a very funny story based on, I think, a short story that was a true little magazine article or something about these people who actually did this.
I think he shot this, I might be wrong, but he basically shot this, if not immediately after. No, he did Father of the Bride right after An American in Paris. Mm-hmm. But then this, I mean, and
1954.
Yeah, right.
1954. Yeah, I mean, I think they just loved it, and it also was trying to keep your name hot. We think of them now as the biggest stars ever, but really I look back and everybody was still trying to make sure that people would watch the show, and it was more publicity, and they weren't playing Lucy and Ricardo, but the characters were so similar.
His name is Nicky instead of Ricky.
Nicky and what's her name? Tacey. I always thought that was a typo.
Yeah, they really went way out, made it totally different. Yeah.
Tacey and Nicky.
And I swear to you, there were moments when I was watching the movie again, and my wife thought the same thing, where we I think she just called him Ricky. I think she screwed up. And then you go back, you're like, no, I guess it was Nicky. I think it was Nicky. So I see this as a risk, and I guess you have to put it in the context of 1954, where we think it's so obvious that you're these big giant stars and will remain that way, but you don't. And of course, stars are filled with self-doubt and constantly thinking you need to do more, and when is this ship gonna... Bad analogy. When is the money train going to run out?
They didn't make any money on I Love Lucy in the beginning because they put a lot of their own money into making sure it would be filmed instead of on tape. They had to take a big risk and say, well, we'll own the show, but we'll put that money up, that extra money that it costs to film it in front of a live audience, but then we want to own those shows. And CBS thought about it and went, yeah, whatever.
Right.
It was like, hello? That was like a really good deal. But then they sold it later on to buy RKO Studios. Fools!
Yeah, well, I mean, good decisions and bad decisions.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
But it's a risk to take these characters that you've created that show up for 24 minutes, broken up by commercials, and then say, is this going to be something that Americans can handle for 95 minutes? There's an artistic risk there.
It was different, though. It wasn't a feature film about I Love Lucy, and it wasn't a feature film about Lucy, Ricardo, and Ricky. They were different people with different lifestyles and different emotions. I think you'll see. As a matter of fact, it was so funny because to me, it is quite different from the show. And yet somebody recently said, I went on, chat lines and stuff about this, and they say, I don't understand. Why didn't they call them Lucy and Ricky? I was like, because they weren't playing Lucy and Ricky. They were playing these other two people, but you try to make it as a little bit like. I mean, you didn't see Fred Astaire, trying to play an axe murderer.
No, of course not. But I like
I didn't stay within his lovable self.
I like it that they.
That would have been great.
They would have expected Sean Connery to why in The Hunt for Red October? Why didn't they call him James Bond?
Yeah,
because it's a different character.
That's
for crying out loud.
That's right.
So I know we gotta go. We've gone over, but I knew we would.
See, like that.
But you, tell me where your father was from.
My father was from Santiago de Cuba in Cuba.
So this is funny. So when diplomatic ties were restored by the Obama administration with Cuba, where were you?
I was having lunch at the White House, completely oblivious to what was going on. How about that? With the social secretary of the White House, who is responsible for every single thing that goes on the grounds of the White House.
Seriously, he's the fourth most important person in the country.
I asked him at lunch, we're just eating lunch and talking about his business, my business, nothing else, not talking about parents, he loved Pippin, he wanted to take me to lunch. And we're talking, and he doesn't mention anything. And then he gives me a tour of the White House. This was December 17th, that year, and so 2014. Yeah. And all the Christmas trees at the White House were up, and I got to see all the trees before the people came in to see them. It was great. And then he takes me upstairs to the Oval Office, and he says, I think maybe we can get in the Oval Office. And I was like, oh, great. Didn't get to meet the president because he wasn't there. He was behind that door over there talking to somebody, but his coffee cup was here, and his jacket was there. A lot of camera equipment. And I said, has something big happened today? Something scary that I should know about? And he goes, oh, no. We just opened ties with Cuba, though. And I went, I'm sorry. Did anybody tell you who I was related to? Because there might have been a photo op, or I'm just saying. I like to say thank you to the guy. Anyway, I never got a chance, and I sort of plopped myself down in a chair, much like this, after a point, and said, I'm not leaving until I get to meet the president.
Have you, had you as a child been to Cuba at all?
No,
Never?
I've never been to, I still haven't been to Cuba. We were going to go, the 50th anniversary of the I Love Lucie show. My brother Desi and I produced a big special for CBS. And we were going to my mother's hometown, which is Jamestown, New York, and then, yay! What? The whole town is here. That's great. And then go to my father's hometown, which is Santiago de Cuba. We got all the visas, we get everything. I'm so excited. My brother Desi and I are going to go. September 11th happened. All the visas gone. Bye-bye. I could get to go in many various forms, but I want to go when my cousin Pedro Wasmer, who's about 10 years older than me, but my cousin, same generation, will go with me because he left when he was about 11, and he remembers where the houses were in the streets and where the farm was burned down and all that stuff. I'd love to see Havana, but I really would love to just see where Pop, lived. So it's going to happen this year because guess what? This year, 2017, is the 100th anniversary of my father's birth. So it better happen now. It's got to happen now.
That's such a good endpoint, but I'm going to ruin it. Because people forget, obviously, the show's named for your mom, so everybody talks. But your father, this was his credits as a producer post I Love Lucie are very impressive.
Yes, well, I think he was a real genius himself and very intuitive, for a guy who didn't go to college and sort of self-taught, comes over here, has to learn a whole new language and prove himself at a time when, if you were Cuban or Mexican, Spanish, it was as bad as being black or a woman. And it took a lot to prove that he could make the decisions and make them well and things. And it's funny because you say, she had her name in the title and she was the star of the show. He always said, well, I was the I. He feels he got top billing.
Star Trek, right?
Star Trek. They created Star Trek, Mission Impossible.
Dick Van Dyke.
Well, they didn't create Dick Van Dyke, but it's shot.
Yeah.
No, he didn't produce Dick Van Dyke. It was one of the when they bought RKO Studios, they turned it into a film production studio, and it was one of the largest in the world. And many of those shows filmed there, including Lassie. But they did produce and create Star Trek. It actually was the beginnings of it, the seeds of it were while my father was there, buying the Ray Bradbury story about it. And then my father and my mother divorced, and my father eventually left the studio, and my mother inherited all those things that he had started. The Untouchables was another one.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and they came to her one day, all the Suits, because she hated. Everybody gives her credit, and deservedly so, for running a studio, first woman president to run a film production studio. But she hated it. I mean, literally hated having that to do. She wanted to do her show, be funny, learn the scripts, go down there. But she got stuck with it. And the Suits showed up, and had all the meetings with her. And they came in one day and said, so we have this list of stuff that something's got to go. The budget is way too high, and so here's our list of things that we think we should cut. The Star Trek for sure, and Mission Impossible and Mannix. Those guys have to go. And she said, well, I like them. She kind of just said, no, let's not cut those. So thank God.
Yeah, all right. No, God bless her. Thank you. I just, as always, it turns out when you read more about people, they're more
how weird is
complicated.
that she started that, and then Larry, my husband Larry Luckenbill, played Sybok in Star Trek V years later. Right? Do the fingers, Larry. There you go. We still have the ears. He was the guy that came over and went like this and said, "Let me take your pain." Remember that? Why didn't you do that when I had the 3 children?
You would have bit my arm off.
That's right, I would have.
Wednesday and Thursday nights, right here on this boat. An intimate evening with Lucie Arnaz. I think you've gotten a taste of what that night is going to be like over the last 20 minutes. I am looking forward to it. I hope to see many of you there. Enjoy the long, long trailer. Lucie Arnaz, everybody.
Playing our song. Thank you. Which way we going? This way. Bye-bye.
Oh, quick. I gotta get a good shot. You got it.
Thanks.